you can think of yourself before you had a great experience coming to public speaking class, before that first day,
Mhm.
what was it that was intimidating to you about taking a public speaking course?
The scariest part for me was having to give speeches in front of people that I never met yet. Like, even though I knew Hannah there already, just everyone else in the class just looking at me when I was like up there on the first day of class was very intimidating for me. That was probably the hardest part, just breaking that barrier of being scared of messing up in front of everyone and just going with what I wanted to present.
Of course, and it's so rare that at such a big university that you happen to know somebody taking the same class as you.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often. So in your case, you actually knew somebody beforehand, and that probably helped you feel a little bit more comfortable. But from what you're saying, that doesn't completely remove the fear
Yeah.
that most people associate with public speaking. How would you define intimidation? In your own words, what does that mean?
Something that you usually get like stressed or worried about that ends up preventing yourself from going towards something that you want or like want to achieve. It's just a barrier that you have to overcome.
Absolutely. I think that the fear creates a feeling of intimidation,
Hmm.
and it has to do with when we're around other people also. Despite feeling intimidated before class, what are some of the things that you did to take a step beyond any intimidation and some of the fears that you were feeling?
Since it was a lot of nervous energy within myself, I would try to use that energy and turn it towards other things. An example being before one of the speeches, I made sure I went to the gym that day before class just to get all of that nervous energy out. And it really helped a lot because I felt a lot more relaxed and calm afterwards. Yeah, I usually just try to direct that nervous energy towards like other things to keep my mind off of what's worrying me. And usually by the time I have to do what I have to do that is worrying me, my mind is cleared up and I'm able to do it better.
Excellent strategy. Exercising before presentations. In fact, I think it's one of the things I've seen that work the best, especially for those of us who tend to feel that nervousness a lot physically in our bodies, whether it's our hands shaking or the legs twitching or
Yeah.
accelerated heart rate, any of those things. If we can get a workout in, say we're going to be speaking at 2 o'clock. If we can get a workout in early that morning, I agree with you that most certainly helps you get past some of those physical responses that our bodies have when it comes to nervous energy. Right? And then you talked about how then that helped you get into a calmer mindset.
Yeah.
How do you think that works in you? Why are those things connected?
For me, like just the fact that like I worked out that day already makes me feel accomplished. So then it just helps give me a positive mindset like, oh, I'm gonna be able to accomplish this next thing that I have to do today. Feeling accomplished for like the little things that you do throughout the day leading up to that big thing that you have to do, it just helps a lot with calming a lot of like the nervousness and the intimidation that you feel.
Right. And I personally believe very strongly in the relationship between our body and our minds and our bodies, and even the work of Amy Cuddy. Her TED Talk is called "How Our Bodies Change Our Minds." And then, of
Mhm.
course, we know that our mindset also impacts our body and the things that we do. But it's this relationship that goes back and forth between the two things, and finding ways, something like exercise affects both the mind and the body. So those kind of things are absolutely great strategies for helping students to feel less intimidated right before
Yeah.
presentation, and even continuously. Do you remember at what point did you start to relax into the class? What was there a moment where you felt like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm just gonna chill, be myself, and enjoy the ride.
Yes, I think that point in the class was it I think it was that activity with the storybooks where we were just talking about the different plot points and explaining them. And that was
Right.
just a very fun activity and that really helps with easing myself into getting to know people and just yeah, just being able to open myself up to other people in the class and getting closer to everyone.
That's great, because that was exactly my intention with that activity. We were talking about understanding the structure of story,
Hmm.
and the three act structure is one way, one framework, and introducing those and understanding about character and inciting moments in a story, and all of the sequencing that happens. And so to frame it up for our listeners, what I did, and feel free to use this activity in your own classrooms or suggest it as an activity. I brought in little storybooks because they're short, quick, and I had students, Nathan, you were in one of the groups, then plot out
Hmm.
some of those stories, helping you to think about the framework of the story with stories that most kids who grew up in the US would be super familiar with. I'm glad that resonated with you, and that was a moment that helped you relax into the class. I love knowing that those moments that are both a mixture of fun and learning are valuable for you as a student. Is there a public speaking skill, Nathan, that you're still working on? Something that you're saying, I'm aware that this is something that I want to improve in, and I'm doing some work to continue to do that.
Probably my filler words, because it's just such a hard habit to kill when it comes to speaking in general. I guess also still feeling a little intimidated with just delivering a speech in general. Like I just get very anxious a lot, and it's definitely gotten a lot better, but it's still something that I'm trying to get myself to work on.
Okay, so you're working on two things then. You're working on continuing to reduce your filler words because you made tremendous gains in the class already. And then the second thing is it's a journey, reducing the feelings of intimidation, the
Yeah.
anxious thinking when it comes to presenting. I do have a thought that is very helpful when it comes to this, and that's that when we're nervous, it's actually a good thing because it's an indicator, it's an emotional indicator that we care about the thing we're about to do. And that's the way that I look at it, is when I get, because for me it happens right in like the pit of my stomach. I get this
Yeah.
feeling, this sensation there. I feel it a little bit in my head and then in my stomach, and I think, okay, these are clear confirmations that what I'm about to do matters to me. Tell me a little bit about what was going on in your mind from, okay, I've got these feelings, this is happening, but you know what? I'm going to move forward anyway.
I feel like my training in martial arts actually helped me with that kind of stuff because, yeah, my Taekwondo instructor before actually said the same thing. Like the fact that you're nervous means that you care about what you're about to do. And the biggest key to combating those nervous thoughts is just practice. And obviously, martial arts is very disciplined and stuff. And the physical tests were always very, very scary to think about, especially as a kid growing up. And just knowing that I've been able to get through those things through practice helped me a lot with practicing for these speeches and just getting my mind right before delivering them in class.
You're making a really interesting connection here. One I had never thought to bring together, which is martial arts and
Mhm.
public speaking. And I love that your martial arts instructor agrees, right? Which is further proof about this connection that we're talking about. That nervousness is it's an indication that we care about what we're about to do. I remember one of your final speeches drew on something that you very much love in your life, something that was a personal thing for you, and you
Mhm.
built a connection to the entire class, and that was your love of Star Wars, and the persuasive part was why everybody needs to watch Star Wars. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even now, right, you're completely smiling, you're so happy, you say Star Wars, and it's definitely something that you love. So thinking back to the first speech you delivered and that last speech you delivered, where were those intimidating thoughts and those anxious thoughts? Were those thoughts different from that first speech to that last speech? Did something change in you? And if something did change, tell us about it.
The hardest part of that first speech was knowing that this was the first thing that people in the class were gonna hear from me. And I feel like with that first speech, I let it get the best of me because I was just so anxious up there, even despite all of the practice that I did. And it was also me talking about someone else. So I wanted to make sure I built a good image for them, for people,
Right, because
while with,
that first speech was you're introducing another person.
yeah,
So to put that into context, that's why you felt that added pressure of I want to do right by this other person, make sure I represent
yeah.
them well.
Well, for the second speech, it just felt like I was talking about myself and something that I grew up with and I feel like has impacted my life so much. Knowing that this was something that I loved talking about in general and delivering that to a class of people that I was now comfortable with, that really helped a lot with my delivery.
For sure, Nathan. I love how hearing from you, hearing from my students, I get this insight that, because I don't have all the answers. To me, being in the classroom with you guys, it's a partnership. I may be the pilot because that's what we do as professors, right? We're leading you guys, but there's no need for that without the students. And so being able to have you guys as passengers and as participants in the room and getting to hear these awesome ways that you connect the lessons in the classroom to things outside of the classroom and to other areas of your life. I mean, it's extremely rewarding and fascinating for me. So thank you very much for sharing all of these things. If you could summarize in one sentence the entire message that you want the people listening to get from you, from your experience in the martial arts room as well as in the public speaking room, what is your message in one sentence?
Probably say, don't let fear get the best of you. Obviously, fear is gonna come to you, but just try to avoid letting it get the best of you through practice and building that confidence in yourself and knowing that what you're about to deliver is something people should hear and that no matter what it is, like something's gonna get at least something out of it, and that's all that really matters.
Now, if you had to put your message on a t-shirt, so it only fits a few words, what would you put on the t-shirt?
I guess it would be something like confidence is greater than fear, something like that. Probably just say like confidence and then like the greater sign in math and then fear, something like that.
I like that. Straight, simple, to the point, visually interesting. What is a skill that you feel really proud of yourself that you developed in terms of speaking?
I feel like the class really helped a lot with just research and preparation and just finding the right information that you want to use for a speech because there's just so much information out there. It does take a bit of skill to try to find the right resources and trying to pick what you want for your speech from these resources.
That reminds me of discipline too. Those
Yeah.
those outlines, they're a way to help organize your content in a way that most of us are not used to.
Hmm.
And writing and speaking, we know these are two completely different things, but writing things out helps us prepare for the speaking. So I'm glad that that's a skill that you were able to develop and that you found useful, because I definitely agree. I want to ask you a very interesting question. If you could go back in time for 15 seconds and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Live your best life and don't be afraid to do the things that you want to do because there's only such little time in the world. Make the most of the time you have.
I love what you're saying, because the message is really, I think, something that a lot of us connect to, because every person understands what it's like to feel intimidated, what it's like
Hmm.
to feel fear. But we do have a choice in whether or not those thoughts allow us to take away from the things in our present. Self-care, something that's very important to me as a person, is something I try to instill in you guys as
Hmm.
students, not only in terms of public speaking, but in every area of your life. So I want to ask you, what is something that you've done to treat yourself really well? Whether it was something that you're like, I want to do this for me, or I'm going to do this for fun, but what's the most recent thing that you did that was just for you to take good care of you?
I've started taking pictures a lot.
Ooh, you're speaking my language there, Nathan.
Yeah, because In high school, I took a digital arts class that I really enjoyed, like learning a lot of the different tools in Photoshop that I feel like I've lost touch with going into college and Rutgers, and just this, it's like having so much time on my hands. I figured why not try picking it up again.
I'd love to see some of the work that you've been shooting lately.
I actually have a photography Instagram that I just started up with
Oh,
some of the stuff I've
great.
taken recently. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today. I think being able to hear from students like yourself is, I mean, there's just no price tag on hearing about our experiences. And it's one
Yeah,
thing to
for
hear
sure.
from the professor. You know, I'm happy to share. I love sharing, but it just has a completely different level of credibility and understanding to hear directly from students that
Mhm.
you're going to feel intimidated, you're going to feel some fear, but you know what? You can totally take that next step, grow as a speaker, and keep showing up and keep doing this with discipline, with creativity, with showing up and sharing. So thank you so much, Nathan, for
No
sharing
problem.
your message today. It's very cool. Like,
Yeah.
conquer your fear. I don't know if that's working or not, but his is a tough one to do for sure. Always reminded me of a lightsaber from
Mhm.
from Star Wars. I'm going to show it to you, right? It looks like this. See this lightning?
Yeah.
Wow.